Bonsoir à tous. So I'm going to speak in English, of course. So I'm so delighted to be here. And when I was preparing this talk, I saw a small thing written below the topic of this talk saying, inspiring news for a brighter future. So I want to share a little story with you very quickly before I start my talk. My parents are originally from Algeria. They left Algeria 70 years ago to go to France, and that's where I was born, me and my 9 siblings. And so from over there, we get great education. Then I moved back to the US, where I become a professor. And now I'm here back in Algeria. It's like a round circle of story. And I wanted to emphasize that academic education success is still, in my opinion, the best way for your brighter future. So never forget about that when you are a student and when you are still in your academic journey. So I went all the back to the US to ask you guys and myself a question, is why don't we feel sometime that we are not performing up to our potential in certain condition, stress condition. It can be a hiring interview, it can be a sport event, whatever puts you under stress. Here, my audience is mostly student. I will talk about the final exam, right? You know that if you are not performing in your final exam, then you feel stressed, and it's not the best things, right, to do. So, I certainly don't have the exact answer about that, but I can share with you today a technique to hold on when you are in this typical stress. You can apply it for your study, you can apply it in life. It's work for chemistry, physics, history, geography, psychology, and in your life of every day. And so I am Ahmed Laroui. As I say, I'm a chemistry professor at Georgia State University, which is in Atlanta, downtown in the US. And I'm going to talk about computational thinking. Computational thinking is divided in 4 different steps. The first step is decomposition. The second step is pattern recognition. The third step, abstraction. And the last step, algorithm design. We're going to go through all those steps together, and I will show you some examples. As I said, the first step is decomposition. So what means decomposition? Well, it's very easy. Let's say you have a very complex problem, and you don't know how to start, how to tackle this, right? Your reflex should be to break down this complex problem into smaller units. And those smaller units, even breaking down further into elementary steps. I give you an example. I see some face in the audience, don't worry. It's not an interrogation, it's not a surprise exam. The chemistry is just a platform, an example, but you're going to understand what I mean when I show that. This is a classical question that we have in chemistry. It's a solution of lead 2 chloride, BPCl2, is saturated at 25 Celsius. Please remember this temperature, 25 Celsius. The solubility product constant is a value, 1.6 10 to the power minus 5. Please calculate the molecular solubility of these solids in the water. Well, if you ask it like this, I can tell you that even some students who know their lecture will have a hard time starting, and even more a hard time finding the solution. So what critical thinking tells us? Instead of asking this question like this to the student, as an educator, as a professor, make the effort to go this way. That's how this problem should look. If you can see, it's exactly the same problem. We ask the person to solve this problem, find the solubility, but within different elementary step. First of all, write the equation of the reaction. Second, write the expression of this constant. Once you have the expression of the constant, then find the definition of the solubility, etc., until you get with the answer. So this is not simplifying the problem in terms it's easier for the student or anything like that. It's neither a low-hanging fruit that we are giving to the student. The student solved the same problem, but with different steps. And this approach has the best benefit for the student because now he has a structured thinking. He gets confident. There is nothing better than a student going through the problem, knocking out question after question, building this confidence that we know is essential, and then finally find the result. So that's the power of this technique. The second step is pattern recognition. Well, once the student answers all those questions, you want them to repeat this process with multiple exercises. I bet you that if I write the question like I show you, the traditional way, you change the salt and the constant, and the student is lost. The student sees a whole different exercise, a whole different problem. He do not connect them together. Well, with this technique, he's now able, with the pattern recognition, to say, well, this problem, I'm gonna knock it out the same way I did the first one, right? I have all this pattern equation, balance equation, expression of the constant, solution, and then I offer my solution to this. So now the student has a real pattern recognition, and if you change the salt, if you change the constant, if you change the temperature, he will still be able to solve it because he knows how it's solving. He knows how to treat that. The last one is abstraction. You remember I asked you to remember this temperature? Well, the temperature has nothing to do with calculating the solubility of this salt. We give it as a chemist because the constant is only valuable for this specific temperature. You should not ever use this temperature in any of those equations because the temperature doesn't get in. The temperature is inside the K value. So you don't use it. It's stressing the student to have this kind of information and not using it. They say, well, wait, he precise 25 Celsius, should I use that? So this is the abstraction. Teach your student what is essential and what is not for the solution final, right? But you want to teach them in a way that you still give it to them, but you explain them. Hey, listen, this 25 Celsius, we are not going to use it. It's just related to the value of the constant. And you prepare the next chapter, because as a chemist, my next chapter is thermodynamic. And guess what? We teach them how the constant is different with the temperature. So instead of just doing abstraction, hiding this value, you show them and you explain to them. The last is algorithm design. This is the student involved in multiple problem solving. He do multiple times this technique. He's going to assimilate, he's going to process, he's going to master it, and then he make the link not within one problem, but within a range of problems. And now you have a student that is really mastering this. So having a great approach is one thing. When you propose this to the student, when you go see your chair of your department and say, hey, here's my technique, people want to see result. That's very important. If I propose an approach, but the student outcome, the learning outcome, that means what they have to learn is not reached, or if the grade go down, then maybe I have to change the technique. So here is some preliminary data. Why I say preliminary data is because this is only 2 semesters, because that's where I start to use this technique. So the way I work is I offer tutoring session to the student. I ask them to be volunteer, and I ask them to come 2 hours in a center called STEM Tutoring Center. It's a great space that is available for professors in Georgia State University, and I fully use it. So I compare the result of the student who come versus the student who don't come. In orange here, we have the student result for those 2 semesters. As you can see here, F, it's around 20%, 22%. is the people who fail the introduction of chemistry. So the number is a little bit bigger because in the F, the fail, there is also the people who drop the class during the semester. So they don't really fail, but they just left. But we count them. So if you compare this with the blue is the statistic on the student who come to those stations. We go from 26 to 3%. That means this approach not only convince the students that they have to stay in the program, they have to keep on, even if it's hard at the first sight. And also, we have this technique that put those students who are at the age of failing, push them up a little bit so that they can succeed. So they pass. Well, if this technique was only helping the student on the age of failing, it will be good, but maybe not enough. If we look at the A student is the student who gets A minus, A, and A plus. If you look at that, we go from 26 to 53. That means we almost double the people who pass the grade with the A. So that means this range, this approach, this technique is helping all the students across the range. And it's not a specific type of student who should have this technique. So that's why I'm always teaching now with this approach, because I know that this is a global approach, helping the most number of students in my class. So let me do a small conclusion here. As you can see, we improve the engagement. How I see that, in this tutoring session, people volunteer, they come, and they are eager to learn. They ask a lot of questions. We build up motivation, and we build up confidence. It's a big difference for a student to start a problem saying to himself or herself, what should I start with? Versus you take by the hand the student and you say, listen, knock out this problem with A, B, C, D. Solve A, build your confidence, do B, build your confidence, etc., etc. Right? So we improve this problem solving, we improve the communication. As a professor, it's nothing better than seeing your student starting conversation about chemistry, right? It's not always that this happens, right? So you have some chit-chat about chemistry, some interaction about chemistry, and they start talking about chemistry outside of the classroom, right? So this is what we get. There is also this student learning at the grade performance. The grade performance is higher, so that's exactly what we want to achieve. We want the student learning outcome of the student to be rich, to know their content of chemistry, but we want them to succeed. And the success also goes through the grade. There is one thing that I didn't show in the statistic because it's not quantitative, it's more some subjective impression that I had. When I was in the tutoring center and helping the student to masterize the chemistry, I noticed one thing, and I think this is the take-home message for anyone who is an educator or teacher, is to switch the table. When you are in the lecture, you are kind of above the student doing your lecture. They have passive learner taking notes. I don't think that's the best way to teach. In those tutoring centers and in my class, I see student engagement, and I tell them to flip the table. Become active learner. That's the key word here. When a student becomes an active learner and take decision for his own safe and his own career, that's where he's going to succeed. Thank you very much for your attention.